Welcome to English Story Haven, where we bring you unique, meaningful stories told in simple English for everyone around the world. Today, we begin a new journey, an original tale called The Forgotten Village, a journey of courage and truth. This story will unfold across 10 parts, and at the end you'll discover a powerful lesson that stays with you. So sit back, listen carefully, and let's begin. The story begins far away from the noise of cities. Surrounded by green forests and high mountains, there lay a small village. Life in this village was simple. People worked in the fields. Children played in the open spaces, and elders gathered each evening to share stories. But there was one thing that made this village different. Just outside the village, hidden between thick trees, stood the entrance to a dark cave. The cave was large, cold, and silent, and no one dared to step inside. For generations, villagers whispered that it was cursed. Parents warned their children never to go near it. Travelers avoided the path leading to it, and so the cave remained, untouched, silent, waiting. Among the villagers was a boy named Ayaan, only 14 years old. Ayaan was known for his bright eyes and endless curiosity. Unlike others who accepted the warnings, Ayaan always wondered, why is the cave forbidden? What is inside? One summer evening, as the sky turned golden, Ayaan sat near the riverbank, gazing. At the cave in the distance, his grandmother Zara joined him. She was the oldest person in the village, her face marked with lines of wisdom, her eyes still shining with life. "Grandmother," Ayaan asked softly, "why does everyone fear that cave? And what is inside it?" Zara's smile faded. She looked toward the mountains, her voice low. "Some things are better left untouched, my child. The cave holds memories our people chose to forget." Ayaan frowned. "But how can memories be dangerous? Isn't truth always better than silence?" His grandmother said nothing more, only patting his hand gently, as if warning him not to push further. That night, while most of the village slept, Ayaan lay awake on his small wooden bed. The moonlight streamed through the window, and his mind was restless. The cave was calling to him not with words, but with mystery. He felt deep inside that it held answers no one wanted to face. The next day, while gathering firewood near the forest, Ayaan overheard two men talking. One of them was Malik, a strong but fearful villager, known for his strictness. "I saw the boy staring at the cave again," Malik said angrily. "If he dares to step inside, he will bring a curse upon us all. Perhaps he's just curious." The other man replied, "Curiosity is dangerous," Malik snapped. "That cave destroyed lives before. We must keep it sealed in silence." Ayaan's heart raced as he listened. What did Malik mean by destroyed lives? Why did the village hold on to fear instead of truth? That evening, Ayaan walked alone to the edge of the forest. The wind whistled through the trees and the cave loomed ahead, dark and unwelcoming. His heart pounded, but he took a step closer. Then another. Silence was heavy, almost alive, standing. At the cave's mouth, Ayaan whispered to himself, "If no one will tell me the truth, then I will find it myself." As he reached out his hand to touch the cold stone wall, a sudden voice called out sharply from behind, "Ayaan, what are you doing here?" Ayaan froze. He turned and saw a tall shadow approaching through the trees. The shadowy figure stepped out from the trees. Ayaan's heart sank. It was Malik, the villager who feared the cave more than anyone else. His sharp eyes glared at the boy, and his voice thundered through the night air. "Ayaan," Malik barked, "do you want to bring disaster upon us all? Have you lost your senses?" Ayaan tried to steady his breathing. I was only looking. I didn't go inside." "That is bad enough," Malik snapped, grabbing the boy by the arm. His grip was strong, almost painful. "The cave is cursed. Evil sleeps inside, waiting for fools like you. You want to awaken it?" Ayaan's heart raced, but he refused to look away. "If it is cursed, then why? What happened here long ago?" "No one will answer me." Malik's face darkened. "Some truths are not meant for children. Curiosity is a dangerous fire. If you keep feeding it, you will burn yourself and the rest of us with you." He shoved Ayaan back toward the village. The boy stumbled, but did not fall. That night, Malik gathered a few men and complained loudly in the village square. No. Boy will not listen. He lingers near the cave. If he awakens the curse, we all suffer. Someone must stop him. The villagers murmured among themselves. Some nodded in fear. Others shook their heads. They respected Malik's strength, but they also pitied Ayaan's youthful curiosity. Before Malik's anger could spread further, Grandmother Zara stepped forward, her walking stick tapping against the ground. Her calm presence silenced the whispers. Enough. Malik, she said firmly, Ayaan is only a child, and fear is no teacher. If he asks questions, it is because our people have given him no answers. Answers, Malik spat. The only answer is silence. Silence keeps us safe. Grandmother Zara's eyes shone with sadness. Or perhaps silence keeps us prisoners. The villagers gasped. None had ever dared to question the warning, so. Openly, Malik clenched his fists, but did not argue further with the elder. He turned away, muttering curses under his breath. Later that night, Ayaan sat beside his grandmother's small fire. Shadows danced across the walls of her hut, and the air smelled of burning herbs. Grandmother, Ayaan whispered, you defended me. But why? Do you know what is inside the cave? For a long moment, Zara said nothing. Then she leaned closer. Her voice hushed. The cave is not what they say, Ayaan. Long ago, it was a place of trials. Our ancestors went there to prove their courage, to face fears and return stronger. But one day, something happened, a story twisted by fear, passed down through generations. What was once a place of strength became a symbol of terror. Eyes widened. So, it isn't cursed? Zara's expression was unreadable. The truth is like a river. It flows, it changes, and sometimes it is hidden beneath the surface. Only those brave enough to search will find it. Her words struck deeply in Ayaan's heart. He felt both inspired and troubled. Why had no one else spoken of this? Why did Malik fight so hard to keep the truth buried? Knock sounded at the door. A stranger stepped inside, a man with a long coat, dust from travel clinging to his boots, and sharp eyes that scanned the room. The villagers had seen him arrive earlier that day. No one knew who he was. I could not help overhearing. The stranger said smoothly, "You speak of the cave as if it were safe, but I tell you, danger sleeps inside. I've traveled far, and I know the signs. Spirits linger there. Dark spirits." His words filled the air with tension. Zara narrowed her eyes. Ayaan felt a chill run down his spine. The stranger's gaze shifted to Ayaan. "Curious boy. If you value your life, stay away. That cave will swallow you whole." For the first time, I sensed something hidden in the man's tones, something that didn't sound like warning, but like threat. The firelight flickered across the stranger's face, throwing shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally long across the hut walls. His voice carried both confidence and warning, as though every word was carefully chosen to unsettle. "I have seen such caves before," the stranger continued, his gaze sweeping from Grandmother Zara to Ayaan. "Where spirits dwell, the living suffer, families vanish, crops fail, sickness spreads. Fear protects the wise. But the foolish who enter bring ruin not only to themselves, but to all around them." A hush fell in the hut. Even the crackling fire seemed to pause. Grandmother Zara's lips pressed together tightly. "You speak of curses, traveler, yet fear alone does not prove truth. What evidence do you carry with you?" The man gave a faint smile. "Evidence is written in scars, elder. Villages I passed on my journey now lie abandoned because their people ignored the warnings. I will not see this place share their fate." His words carried weight, and though Ayaan felt a prickle of doubt, he noticed how slickly the man spoke, like a merchant selling fear. When the stranger finally left, the air in the hut grew heavy. Ayaan looked up at his grandmother. "He lies," the boy said firmly. "I don't know how, but he lies." Zara sighed, stroking his hair gently. The world is full of men who twist truth into chains. Fear is the easiest chain to wear. It binds people tighter than iron. The next morning, the stranger stood in the village square. A small crowd gathered, drawn by his commanding presence. Malik stood beside him, nodding in agreement at every word. "You must not approach the cave," the stranger declared loudly. "I have seen the signs. The ground there is cursed. Do you not feel the cold wind when you pass? Do you not Spirits hunger, and if you awaken them, they will devour your children first." Gasps rose from the villagers. Mothers clutched their little ones closer. Men looked uneasy, glancing toward the dark forest path. Malik raised his fist. "Listen to him. He speaks the truth. We have lived safely because we stayed away. We cannot allow foolish curiosity to destroy us all." Ayaan pushed his way through the crowd, his heart hammering in his chest. "But none of you have seen these spirits. You only believe because you are afraid. What if the cave is not cursed at all? What if it holds something important?" The villagers murmured. Some looked ashamed, others scowled at him. Malik's face burned with anger. "Silence. Boy, you dishonor your people with your reckless tongue." The stranger tilted his head, studying Ayaan with a slow, unsettling smile. "Bravery is admirable," he said smoothly, "but bravery without wisdom is suicide." His eyes gleamed with something darker, something that made Ayaan's stomach twist. That evening, while the village prepared for rest, Ayaan lingered near the square. He spotted the stranger slipping away quietly toward the forest. Curiosity surged stronger than fear. Ayaan followed at a distance, his bare feet silent on the soft earth. The moon was bright, casting silver light through the trees. The stranger moved quickly, glancing over his shoulder as if guarding a secret. Finally, he stopped near the entrance of the cave. From his coat, he pulled out a small pouch. He scattered a dark powder across the ground and whispered strange words under his breath. Ayaan's eyes widened. This was no cursed place long ago. This was something the stranger was doing himself. The boy ducked behind a tree, holding his breath. His mind raced. He is lying to us. He is planting fear. But why? The stranger suddenly froze, his head jerking up. His gaze swept the trees, sharp and searching. For a moment, Ayaan thought those piercing eyes had found him. The man's voice cut through the silence. "Who's there?" Akeen's heart stopped. Ayaan's heart hammered in his chest as the stranger's voice echoed through the forest. "Who's there?" The man called, his tone sharp and dangerous. The boy pressed himself against the rough bark of the tree, forcing his breaths to slow. The forest seemed to hold its breath tune, rustling leaves, no chirping insects, only silence. The stranger stepped closer to the trees, eyes scanning every shadow. For one terrible moment, his gaze swept directly past Ayaan's hiding place. The boy's muscles tensed, ready to run if he had to. But after a few long seconds, the man turned back toward the cave, muttering under his breath. Ayaan dared not move, though his curiosity grew stronger. He watched as the stranger knelt near the cave wall, pulling a small oil lamp from his pack. The dim light revealed something that made Ayaan's eyes widen in shock. Carvings etched deep into the stone. Just beyond the entrance were symbols and shapes. They were faded but still clear figures of men and women standing tall, holding torches, facing wild beasts and storms. These were not markings of fear, but of bravery. The stranger's hand moved over the carvings as if he despised them. He shook his head and whispered, "No one must see this. No one must remember." A chill crawled down Ayaan's spine. The man was hiding the truth suddenly. Twig snapped beneath Ayaan's foot. The stranger whirled around, lamp raised high. "Who's there?" he barked again, his eyes burning with suspicion. Ayaan's blood froze. He ducked lower behind the tree, praying the shadows would shield him. For several tense moments, the man prowled the forest edge, scanning every direction. Finally, with a frustrated grunt, he returned to the cave, scattering more of the strange black powder at its entrance. "I will keep them afraid," the stranger muttered. "Fear keeps them blind." Then, with one last glance around, he extinguished the lamp and disappeared into the darkness of the trees. Only when the sound of footsteps faded completely did Ayaan finally breathe again. His hands trembled, his legs weak, but his mind was sharper than ever. The carvings. The cave isn't cursed. It holds the truth. He doesn't want us to know. The boy crept closer, heart racing. Moonlight spilled faintly onto the carvings, just enough for him to trace the outlines with his fingers. Warriors, hunters, families, all etched into stone, as if telling a story long forgotten. He wanted to go deeper inside to see more, but a sudden hand clamped tightly onto his shoulder. Ayaan gasped. Spinning around it was Malik, his face twisted with anger and fear. "You dare come here again?" Malik hissed. "First you argue in the square, now you sneak into the forest like a thief? Are you trying to doom us all?" Ayaan struggled to find words. "Malik, listen, there are carvings inside. The cave is not cursed. The stranger, he's lying to us. I saw him enough." Malik's grip tightened painfully. "I will not hear your madness. You're blinded by your foolishness. The cave is evil, and so are the thoughts it plants in your head." He dragged Ayaan away from the cave, his steps heavy with fury. The boy twisted, desperate. "You don't understand. If the villagers knew the truth, they wouldn't have to live in fear anymore." Malik's face hardened, his voice like steel. "Fear keeps us alive, boy. Without it we would be nothing but bones in the dirt." They reached the edge of the village, where the faint glow of torches lit the path. Malik leaned down, his voice low and threatening. "If I catch you near that cave again, I will take you before the council myself, and they will not be as patient as your grandmother." Ayaan's chest tightened, but inside his determination only grew stronger. He would not stop now. He had seen the truth with his own eyes. As Malik stormed off, leaving him alone in the darkness, Ayaan whispered to himself, "I will go back." The village, the cave loomed silently in the moonlight tits, secrets waiting. Its truth buried in stone. The next morning, the village square was alive with murmurs. Malik stormed into the center, his booming voice demanding attention. "People of the village," shouted, slamming his staff against the ground. "The boy, Ayaan, has disobeyed us again. He sneaks into the forest at night. He lingers by the cave, and now he spreads madness about false carvings and lies. If we do not act, his foolishness will bring the curse upon us all." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mothers pulled their children closer. The men exchanged uneasy looks. From the side, Ayaan stood silently, his fists clenched. His chest burned with anger, not because Malik accused him, but because none of them had seen what he had seen. None of them had touched the ancient carvings. That told a different story, I say, Malik continued, raising his arm. "We bring this boy before the council and decide his fate today. If he will not listen, then we must forbid him from going near the forest, or worse, cast him out before his curiosity destroys us all." The villagers erupted in fearful chatter. Some nodded, agreeing. Others looked uncertain. Just then grandmother Zara stepped forward, her walking stick tapping firmly on the ground. The crowd quieted instantly. "Malik," she said, her voice calm but strong, "fear has poisoned your tongue. Ayaan is a child who seeks knowledge, not destruction. His curiosity dangerous, but I tell you this, silence and ignorance are far more dangerous." A few villagers whispered agreement, but Malik's face twisted with rage. "You defend him only because he is your blood." Malik spat. "But what happens when the spirits rise and tear through our homes? Will you protect us then, old woman?" Eyes narrowed. "Spirits have not walked this land for generations. It is not the cave that haunts us, it is the chains of fear we place upon ourselves." The villagers were split. Some nodded at Zara's wisdom, but others shook their heads. Clutching tightly to Malik's words, fear was familiar. Fear felt safe. Ayaan stepped forward, his voice trembling but steady. "I saw the truth with my own eyes. The cave is not cursed. There are carvings and side paintings of our ancestors. They were strong, not cursed. They face challenges, not spirits. The stranger doesn't want us to know. He is lying to us. This Malik burst into laughter, cruel and sharp. Carvings? Childish drawings on the wall? Do you not see?
Ow.
This boy's imagination will be our undoing. But some villagers looked thoughtful. One man whispered, "If there are carvings, perhaps we should see them," another muttered. The crowd began to murmur. The stranger did arrive so suddenly, divided, uncertain. Suddenly, the stranger himself stepped into the square, his long coat swaying as he walked. His presence drew immediate silence. His eyes scanned the people, his smile polite but cold. "Good people," he said smoothly. "Do not let doubt weaken your safety. The boy is reckless, and his words are dangerous. I have traveled far and seen the ruins of villages that ignored the warnings. Do you want the same fate?" The fear in his voice spread quickly, like fire through dry grass. Many nodded again, retreating into their silence. Grandmother Zara, however, stood tall. "You speak to icily of other villages, traveler, but tell me this: if danger is so great, why do you linger here?
Ice.
Why not move on?" The stranger's smile faltered, just for a heartbeat, before he quickly masked it. "Because I care for your safety," he replied. Ayaan stepped forward again, his small frame shaking but his voice sharp. "No. You stay because you want us afraid. I saw you at the cave last night. I saw you scattering powders and whispering lies. You are the one trying to keep the truth hidden." A shocked gasp rose from the villagers. All eyes turned to the stranger. His calm mask cracked just slightly as anger flickered in his gaze. Malik roared, "Lies. The boy speaks lies." But his voice no longer carried the same certainty. The crowd grew restless, torn between fear and doubt. For the first time, the stranger's control seemed to weaken. Then, with a sharp, commanding tone, the traveler said, "Enough. This boy endangers you all. If you value your lives, you will silence him before it is too late." The villagers froze, caught between obedience and suspicion. Ayaan's heart pounded as he looked around, wondering would they believe him, or would they let fear bury the truth forever? The council meeting ended in confusion. Villagers scattered, in small groups, some whispering in fear, others exchanging doubtful glances. Malik stomped away angrily, muttering curses, while the stranger disappeared into the shadows with a stormy expression. But Ayaan's mind was set. They will never believe unless I show them. I must see it for myself and bring back proof. The next morning, as the sun climbed the sky, most villagers were busy in the fields. Seizing the chance, Ayaan slipped away. His feet carried him swiftly down the narrow forest path, heart thumping with both excitement and dread. The forest seemed alive with whispers. Every crunch of leaves beneath his sandals echoed too loudly. Yet the boy pressed on, until at last, the cave loomed before him once more, dark, silent, waiting. He hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. Cool air swept over him, carrying the scent of earth and stone. The light dimmed quickly, but through cracks in the ceiling, thin beams of sunlight filtered down, guiding his way. Dust motes floated in the shafts of light, like tiny stars trapped underground. And then he saw them, the carvings. This time, he walked closer, his hands brushing across the stone walls. Lines and figures stretched across the cave like an ancient storybook. The more he looked, the clearer it became. These were not signs of curses or monsters. They were stories of courage. Figures stood tall against storms, fought wild beasts, and crossed rivers. Men and women stood side by side, holding torches aloft, their faces carved with pride, not fear. The paintings were more vivid, deeper inside. Red and black pigments still clung to the rock images of ancestors braving the unknown. Entering the very cave where Ayaan now stood, at the center of one painting was a great circle of fire, and around it people stood with raised hands, as if celebrating victory, not mourning loss. Ayaan's chest tightened with awe. This is it. This is the truth. Our ancestors were not cursed, or were brave. They faced their fears and grew stronger. But as he studied further, something else caught his eye. At the very end of the wall was a carving unlike the others. It showed two figures, one standing tall with a torch, the other crouched in shadows, holding chains. Beneath them, a symbol that looked strikingly similar to the powders. The stranger had scattered outside the cave. A shiver ran down Ayaan's spine. The lie of fear is older than even Malik knows. Someone long ago must have twisted the story. And now the stranger is doing it again. He backed away, his heart racing. He knew now what he must do. Bring the villagers here, show them the walls, force them to see with their own eyes. But before he could leave, sharp sound echoed behind him, the crunch of footsteps. Ayaan spun around, his stomach sinking. A tall shadow emerged at the entrance. Blocking the light, it was the stranger. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, cold and furious. "Curious little rat," he hissed.
I warned you, yet you keep digging where you do not belong.
Mouth went dry. He glanced at the walls, at the truth carved in stone, then back at the man whose lies had enslaved his people in fear. The stranger stepped forward slowly, his hand reaching into his coat. "Now," he said softly, almost like a growl, "you will learn why the cave is forbidden." The cave walls seemed to close in around Ayaan as the stranger advanced. The boy's breath echoed loudly in the stillness, mingling with the sound of the man's boots crunching on stone. "Why are you doing this?" Ayaan demanded, forcing his voice to stay steady, though his knees trembled. "With fear? Why lie about the cave?" The stranger's lips curled into a smirk, though his eyes burned with cold fire. "Because fear is the easiest leash, binds stronger than rope, and it never breaks. People will follow you when they are. Afraid, obey you when they tremble. And I thrive when others cower." He pulled a vial from his coat dark, liquid swirling inside. "This cave is my stage. Make it scream with curses, and your people run." Simple, Ayaan's fists clenched. "You're a coward. Our ancestors faced danger with courage. Yes. Twist their stories to make yourself powerful." For a flicker of a second, the stranger's smirk faltered, then his voice dropped to a low growl. "And if they discover the truth, I lose my grip. Which means, boy, I cannot let you leave." Before Ayaan could react, the man hurled the vial to the ground. It shattered with a hiss, releasing a dark smoke that spread quickly through the cave. The air thickened, and the boy coughed. Watering, strange shapes flickered in the smoke faces that wailed, hands that clawed illusions meant to terrify. The stranger's voice boomed through the haze. "Do you see now? Even courage drowns when fear surrounds it." Ayaan shut his eyes against the smoke, pressing a hand over his mouth. He remembered his grandmother's words. Fear is a chain. But chains can be broken. He forced himself to focus, to listen. Through the smoke, he heard the faintest drip of water deeper in the cave. The paintings, he thought, I can get past. Him, if I can show the others, his lies will fall apart. Summoning his strength. Ayaan darted sideways, weaving through the haze. The stranger cursed, chasing after him. But the boy's smaller frame slipped between rocks and ledges the man could not. At last, Ayaan burst into the wider chamber, the heart of the cave where the great fire circle painting glowed faintly in. The torchlight he carried pressed his hands to the wall as if drawing courage from the carved ancestors. The smoke followed, curling like black snakes around the chamber. The stranger's figure loomed, his shadow stretching monstrously tall. "Across the walls, you cannot win, boy," he snarled. "Even if you scream the truth, they will not believe you. Fear has lived longer than you have breathed." Ayaan turned, his voice shaking but fierce. "Then I will show them. With their own eyes, just like I see it now." He raised his torch. High, the flames illuminating the carvings, the people braving storms, the torchbearers in triumph, the chains broken. The images glowed with life, as if the ancestors themselves were standing beside him. For the first time, the stranger hesitated. His eyes darted to the walls, narrowing with unease. The smoke faltered, thinning as if the fire's light burned it away. Seizing the moment, Ayaan sprinted toward the exit. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but his determination carried him forward. He could hear the man's furious shouts echoing behind him, boots pounding against stone. Just as the boy reached the mouth of the cave, a hand clamped down on his shoulder, yanking him backward. The stranger's face twisted with rage. "You will not leave alive." Ayaan's torch slipped from his grasp, clattering onto the ground, its flame sputtering dangerously close to the scattered powder on the cave floor. Both froze. The flame hissed, sparks dancing, and then the torch sizzled as it rolled across the cave floor, sparks leaping dangerously toward the trail of strange powder scattered earlier by the stranger. For a single breath, both Ayaan and the man stood frozen, eyes wide. The powder ignited, racing in a line of fire that burst across the cavern floor. Flames licked upward, casting wild shadows on the ancient carvings. The painted figures seemed alive, now dancing in firelight, holding their torches. Higher, their faces filled with triumph. The stranger cursed and released Ayaan, stumbling back as the heat flared. "Foolish boy, you'll burn us both." But Ayaan snatched up the torch again, holding it steady despite the trembling in his arms. His voice rang out against the cave walls. "Know the fire shows the truth. Look, our ancestors weren't cursed. They were brave. They fought through the darkness. And so will we." The roar of flames echoed outward through the cave mouth, and soon shouts rang from outside. Villagers drawn by the smoke hurried toward the entrance. Malik was among them, his face twisted with anger. Behind him came Ayaan's grandmother, her steps slow but resolute, her eyes sharp despite her age. "What's happening?" voices cried. "The cave burns. Who has awakened the curse?" The stranger seized his chance. He thrust a hand toward the fire, shouting, "See how the boy defies you. He brings ruin upon your heads. The curse is alive because of him." Gasps filled the air. Some villagers shrank back, fear clutching their hearts. Malik sneered, his voice booming. "I warned you. The boy meddles with forbidden things. He will destroy us all." But Ayaan stepped forward, coughing through the smoke, his eyes fierce. "No, look. All of you, look at the walls." He held the torch high, casting its glow across the carvings. For the first time, the villagers saw clearly. The ancestors battling storms, lifting torches, breaking chains. Their faces, etched in stone, were not twisted in terror, but shining with pride. The crowd murmured in confusion. "That's not a curse," one whispered. "They look strong." "They were never afraid," another said softly. "They faced the darkness." The stranger's face darkened. He stepped in front of the walls, trying to block the view. "Lies, trickery. These are the boy's inventions. Paints false hope to lead you astray." But Ayaan's grandmother pushed forward, her frail hand trembling as she pointed. "No, these carvings are older than us all. They tell the truth. Fear has blinded us, but this child has opened our eyes." The villagers shifted, torn between terror and realization. The stranger's control was slipping. His eyes flashed with desperation, and from his coat he pulled another vial, larger than before, swirling with a blacker smoke. "If you will not believe in fear," he hissed, "then I will make you feel it." He raised the vial high, ready to shatter it against the stones. "No," Ayaan shouted, lunging forward. He grabbed the man's arm, and the two struggled, flames roaring dangerously close. The crowd cried out, frozen between running and fear, and stepping in to help, the vial slipped. Time seemed to slow, tumbled through the air, spinning. Black liquid glinting in the firelight, and then it struck the ground. A blinding flash erupted, swallowing the chamber in smoke and sparks. The villagers screamed as the fire roared higher, shadows twisting wildly across the walls. Through the chaos, Ayaan felt the stranger's grip tighten around his arm. Cold voice whispered close to his ear, "If you want to be a hero, boy, you will die a hero." The cave was swallowed in choking black smoke. It curled along the ceiling, poured into every crack, and slithered toward the crowd like a living beast. Villagers coughed and stumbled back, their voices breaking into cries of terror. "The curse! It's real," one shouted. "We must flee." Another screamed. The stranger's laughter echoed low and venomous. He loomed tall through the haze, his eyes glowing faintly as if feeding on their panic. Yes, run. Fear me as your ancestors once did. Nothing has changed. You are weak. You are mine. The smoke coiled tighter, pressing into chests, making breaths shallow. Some fell to their knees, trembling, their courage crumbling. Malik staggered, his face pale, yet still he pointed at Ayaan with venom. This is your doing, boy. Doomed us all. But Ayaan, though his lungs burned and his eyes stung, stood firm. He clutched the torch tighter, raising it high above his head. The flame wavered in the darkness, but it did not die. No, he shouted, his voice cracking but strong. This smoke is not a curse, it's a trick. We don't have to bow to. Fear, look at the walls. Look at what our ancestors left us. Through the swirling black, the torchlight flickered across the carvings. The faces of the ancestors shone bright in the firelight, standing tall. Breaking chains, walking forward into darkness with unshaken resolve. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then, a single voice broke through. He's right, whispered an old woman near the entrance. The carvings, they're not of fear, but of strength. Another villager, gripping his daughter's hand, nodded. Our ancestors weren't cursed. They fought, they endured. The crowd stirred, whispers spreading, courage awakening like embers in dry grass. The smoke pressed harder, but the villagers no longer cowered. They coughed, they trembled, but they lifted their heads. The stranger snarled, his calm cracking. Fools. Fear is stronger than hope. It always has been. Ayaan's grandmother stepped forward, her frail frame shaking, yet her eyes blazed. Not anymore. Not today. Her words sparked something deeper. Villagers stepped beside her, their voices rising one after another. We are not afraid. We are not cursed. We are stronger than the darkness. The torchlight flared. As though feeding on their words, the smoke, thick and suffocating moments before, began to thin. The stranger's form wavered within it, his once commanding presence shrinking under the force of their defiance. No, no, he spat, clutching at the vile shards on the ground as though trying to draw more power. You cannot break free. Fear is eternal. But Ayaan stepped forward, lifting the torch higher until the flames licked the black haze. His voice rang like a bell, steady and unyielding. Fear only rules if we let it, and we won't let it anymore. The villagers echoed him, their chant rising together, filling the cave with a strength the smoke could not smother. The darkness recoiled. The stranger stumbled back, his figure flickering like a dying shadow. His power, once so vast, was crumbling. Before their eyes, yet even weakened, his lips twisted into a hateful smile. You think you've won? You think light will save you, and let it burn you all? With a roar, he struck out his hand, and the last of his dark power surged. The flames of the torch flared uncontrollably, leaping up the cave walls. A fire raced along the powder trails, roaring toward the crowd and the stranger alike. The cave shook. Stones rumbled overhead. Ayaan's eyes widened. For one breath, he felt the weight of everything. The fire, the crumbling roof, the frightened but defiant villagers behind him, and he knew the final choice rested in his hands. The flames roared like a wild beast, licking the walls of the cave, turning smoke to ash. The air trembled with heat, and the villagers clutched each other as the ground shook beneath their feet. Stones cracked and tumbled, echoing like thunder. The stranger staggered in the firelight, his dark cloak unraveling into wisps of smoke, his face twisted in rage and fear. You cannot escape me. Fear always returns. It always finds a home. His voice was weaker now, his shadow shrinking, as the villagers pressed closer together. Their eyes fixed not on him, but on the boy standing at the front. Ayaan raised the torch high, its flame bright and defiant. Sweat streaked his face, but his voice was steady. Fear dies when we face it together. You don't rule us anymore. The villagers echoed him, their voices rising above the crackle of fire. We are not afraid. We are not cursed. We are free. The stranger's scream tore through the cave, but it was not the sound of victory, it was the cry of something being broken. Ah! His form shuddered, his smoky shape scattering into the firelight. Piece by piece, he dissolved, his power crumbling into nothing but sparks and ash dot. And then he was gone. The cave groaned, rock splitting and tumbling as if the mountain itself had been holding its breath for centuries. "Run," Ayaan shouted, grabbing his grandmother's hand. "Everyone, follow me." The villagers surged toward the exit, stumbling over fallen stones, shielding each other as the cave collapsed behind them. Firelight flashed, shadows leaped, and the roar of destruction chased them step by step. Ayaan held the torch high, guiding the way. His legs ached, his lungs burned, but he didn't stop not while others leaned on him for strength. Malik stumbled once and Ayaan caught his arm, dragging him forward despite all the boy's cruelty. In that moment, it didn't matter who had mocked him, who had doubted him. They were all in this together. At last the villagers burst into the night. Cool air rushed over them, stars glittering above as if the heavens themselves had opened to welcome them home. Behind them, the cave shuddered one last time before collapsing in a thunderous crash. Smoke and sparks spewed upward, then faded into the darkness of the sky, not as a place of fear, but as a tomb sealing away the last of the stranger's shadow. For a long moment, the villagers stood in stunned silence, their faces glowing in the starlight. Then a murmur spread, soft at first, then stronger. "We're free. The curse is broken. The boy, he saved us." Ayaan lowered the torch at last, the flame dimming to embers. He looked at the villagers not as enemies, not as doubters, but as family. And for the first time they looked at him with pride, not scorn. His grandmother placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. "You've reminded us of something we forgot, my child. The greatest strength was never in fear, it was in us all along." The villagers nodded, their eyes shining. And as they began their walk back to the village, something had changed forever. The stories they would tell their children would no longer be about curses and shadows, but about courage, unity, and the boy who carried a torch into the dark. Lesson for viewers of English Story Haven: this story reminds us that fear only has power if we give in to it. When we face challenges together, with courage and unity, even the darkest shadows cannot control us. True strength does not come from running away, but from standing tall, supporting one another, and choosing hope over fear. So remember, the light we carry in our hearts can defeat even the deepest darkness.